Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Hi, this is Ed Cohen in San Diego, downtown San Diego, California, and you're on Global TV Talk Show, which is a unit of globalbusinessnews.net. We started online in '03. A friend of mine at Intel designed this set and the site, and it's still being used, although iteration later. Our Global TV Talk shows began in March, April of 2020 as a result of the crash down of our live conference business connected with talent mobility management across the US, Canada, Latin America, and Europe. So now we've learned how to, since March, April of 2020, we've produced over 150 TV shows. This is a TV show, live. So you got to be camera ready. And our guests today are Stephen Howard in Mexico City, who's the author of business books, 21 business books. And he also has Caliente Leadership, Caliente Press, which you'll get into in just a second. And our honored special guest for the first time is Steve Cadigan in the San Francisco Bay Area. He has just written a book just out, and it's called Workquake. Welcome, Steve Cadigan. What is Workquake about? Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and nice to meet you, Edwin and Stephen. Looking forward to the conversation. Well, I'll tell you what, I've been in the talent field for over 35 years, and I think in the last 10 years, I've become increasingly dissatisfied with the framework of work. And I feel like we have today a really fundamentally broken model of work, and the contract between employer and employees needs a restart. It needs a refresh, and it needs to be updated. And I've been thinking about this for the last dozen years or so, just trying to understand why are both employers and employees feeling so dissatisfied? And what, the millennials are the knee-jerk blame, or the fingers of the executives are pointing at millennials, short attention span, career sugar high, shopping for promotions, disloyal. And the more I looked into this, the more I feel like that's absolutely not what's going on in the world of work. I think the millennial generation has greater choice and greater visibility to opportunity than any generation of workers ever. And I tell these senior executives, if you were 45 years ago starting your career and you could see what they can see, and you could be aware of the opportunities that they're aware of today, there's no way you'd be in the same company 5 or 10 years. You would be taking advantage of those opportunities because you know what the pay is, the culture, the leadership style, and so forth. So what I attempted to do with Workquake is say, listen, I'm also trying to tackle the refrain of the future of work, which is run for the hills, the robots are coming, your job's toast, all the jobs tomorrow don't even exist today, you don't even know what skills you should build. I find that incredibly demotivating. So I'm like, no, the future of work is about being more human. It is really exciting, but it is confusing right now because both employers and employees have less visibility to the future than at any time in history. And that creates tension. And so I'm trying to help leaders and companies and individuals create new pathways and give stories and examples in Workquake of how people are navigating and finding motivation and finding success in different ways. So that's what it's about.
So the workquake means a mental shift, but it's also a reality, especially for younger people, much younger than me, that boomers like me have blown it, and they're upset, and they're not going to take it anymore. Remember that guy on TV yelling? and so here we are again, right, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You have to call me Stephen and him Steve, I think, to make sure we know which one you're directing the question to. It will get confusing. I absolutely. And, you know, I read just today, actually, that in April, May, and June of this year, so we're recording here in late August, April, May, and June, 11.5 million people in America resigned from their jobs. So we're into what we call this great resignation era. So my question to the other Steve, to author Steve, is your book will it help leaders understand how to handle and tackle the great resignation?
Yeah, absolutely. And Stephen, thank you for bringing that up. Not only that, we have the largest number of unexpected retirements since we've been measuring retirement in the workforce. And we also have people who are being interviewed by the best consulting firms in the world saying, if I have to go back to the office, I'd rather quit. And that's a substantially, significant number, more than, 10, 15, about 40, 45% is what the numbers are showing. What I try to present in Workquake is that what we're seeing is there's been a psychological shift happening among the workforce that we need to recognize, that people are increasingly seeing job security is movement. And we've built a model, and we've been teaching in business schools, and we've been told in our education days that what you need to seek is stability, and stability is staying in one place for a long period of time. And all the benefits of companies are driven by how long you stay. You get more vacation, you get more retirement, you get more seniority, you get more benefits. And what the workforce is starting to feel now is, if being stationary is actually making me more vulnerable. And the more I move, the more I can learn, the more I control my destiny, the bigger my network becomes, the more I am seeking new opportunities, the closer I'm going to find my dream job and my ultimate, work nirvana. And this is really, I think, what's behind a lot of the job movement, that people are increasingly seeing, career security is moving, not being stationary. Right. And no company's promising long-term tenure anymore. And if companies are promising it, no one's believing it, because no one can be certain there won't be a pandemic or a new strain of the virus around the corner that's going to disrupt your business, right? So, I was having a fascinating discussion yesterday with a prospective client around this notion of, we've looked at organizations as fundamentally built on needing employees, full-time employees, to create value. And what the pandemic has served us as an opportunity to build something different and better, which is, as an organization, I need to create value. Traditionally, we believe we need employees for that, but maybe we just need contractors or part-time people, or, a potpourri of people in different capacities can still contribute something great. And maybe we've overvalued tenure. And one of the things that I think is really interesting for the audience is, if you look at Microsoft, Oracle, Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, Uber, Snapchat, you look at the tenure of the employees in those organizations, they're all under 2 years. Okay. Now, they're some of the most profitable, most valuable companies in the world. But they also have businesses that can weather change and were built to weather change. And you look at Tesla too. It's one of the newest players in the automobile industry, valued more than Ford, Toyota, and Honda combined. Did they come up with a new model of leadership? I don't think so. Are people staying there 10 years? No, because the company's not even 20 years old. And so what's happening there? That they're creating enormous disproportionate value and the investor community is saying that's the company of the future. Not Ford, GMC, Honda have all these patents and all these people with dozens of years of really great experience. And that's what I'm seeing as the workquake, is we need to wake up and see there perhaps different ways of creating value, and appreciate that every executive I speak to around the world, when asked, what's your biggest problem? Can't find great talent, can't keep great talent. And after we get through all the reasons why they think, I said, do you think that's going to change? Do you think we're seeing a moment in time and people tomorrow, next year, next decade are going to stay longer? And they say, no, I don't. I said, okay, so you believe, and this is where they stop their thinking. And what I'm trying to do with Workquake is let's continue the thinking. If you stop there, then I'm going to ask you, why are all your benefits still driven by rewarding people to stay a long time? Why don't you think about, maybe I can create value in a more fluid world of work where I expect only people will stay a year or two, and I build around that. Now that doesn't work for, if you're landing someone on the moon and life's on the line, or you're solving cancer treatment. You want people to stay longer. And I'm not trying to promote that we should be moving people out of the organization fast. And I want to keep the best people as long as the next person. However, if all of us believe that talent is going to stay less and less, we need to start thinking about how to design work and organizations to account for that. And that's a lot of what I'm trying to do. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm still trying to help people, shake people and say, look, this is what you're telling me, but you need to start doing something differently. Maybe, and here's point number one, and I'll throw it back to you, Edwin. In a more fluid world of work where more people are leaving your organization than ever before, you now have more alumni than you've ever had. What are you doing with that alumni? Are you taking the Tony Soprano School of HR, which is you quit, you're dead to me, which I've worked in organizations and we've done that. And, I can't say I haven't done that. Or are you taking the approach, you know what? We have a bigger alumni base. Let's mine it. Let's curate it. Let's nurture it. Let's invite them back. Let's ask them to review new product ideas that we have. Let's have them come back and talk about the future or new markets, or let's have them refer candidates to us. But most organizations don't. Once you leave, the organization stops seeing you as a relevant force in their universe. And in a fluid world of work, that's an opportunity that most companies can really take advantage of. So that's part of what I'm trying to help people see.
That's very cool. So I'd like to just bring in this and then jump out again and let you guys talk, because I'm learning from listening, and I'm in PR, not in HR. So I'm learning. So the movie business, particularly contrasting today with Spielberg dominated thinking, going back to Gone with the Wind, say. All right, huge color production studio system where people were on contract long term until they got fired or whatever. But Spielberg brings together, and of course other directors too, but he was the one to monetize it properly, I believe, when he was on the lot of Universal. Long story made real short here. They have a hardcore management team, executive management, Kathleen Marshall and a couple of others, and the bald guy with the glasses, I can't remember his name. And then they hired up the best director, the best photographer, the best clothing maker, the music guy, John Williams, and everybody else came along and was a gig worker. And they all got real pay, good pay, and a lot of power because of the success they could bring to that one production, and then out, gone. Now, they may get hired again because they were so good.
All right, so I want to jump on this, and then I want to hear what Stephen thinks. If readers take a look at my book, the introduction, I talk about a moment when I was at Electronic Arts in the video game industry, in the entertainment space, and how I left that, and the experience of leaving really opened my eyes to something felt dissatisfying around leaving a company before the expected duration of your employment, longer than the 18 months that I was at Electronic Arts. But I had another really interesting experience in Electronic Arts where I visited studios when I joined the company, and they're similar to movie studios. And I was listening to a leader tell me, I worry more about the work I don't have for my employees than I do anything else. And I said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And so Electronic Arts is a collection of game studios around the world assembled through acquisition. And if they have a game, the way that work goes through the game studio is like food through a python, right? The initial creatives take it, and then the sound people take it, and then the design people take it. And after your work is done on that, you don't have anything to do. So what the leader of the studio, what she was telling me was, I need to build another game or I'm going to lose this employee. They're going to go because I'm not utilizing them, and they're going to be demotivated, and they probably want to make good work, and they should do good work. So the problem was that we were having studios make games to not lose people, not make games to make profit and to innovate. And that was the problem. So what did I do? I went to the CEO and I went to the executive team and I said, we need a model like Hollywood. This is silly. Why are we employing people like this? And I love your thinking on this, Edwin, because exactly how I thought about it. And this is probably 15 years ago. This is what we have to do. And they said, no, they didn't even want to hear about it because they're worried the best people when they left wouldn't come back. And that was the rub. And that's why we're so focused on tenure and keeping the best people. And I'm like, well, wait a second, let's design a reward system that let's give them stock. And when they leave, it freezes. But when they come back, they don't have to start at zero. We'll accelerate. And then it's on us. And this is what I like about that model. It's on us to be the place they want to be, not because we've got the golden handcuffs on them, but because we've got good culture, good leadership, good development, good place to work. Right. And so that, they weren't willing to take that on, which in part contributed to my, feeling like I don't think I can change this beast, and they're going to continue to shoot themselves in the foot because the employment model is broken. It doesn't work for that kind of work. There's another factor that really blocks that kind of model from working. And having worked on my own the last 8 years, and you guys can probably relate to this, we have this thing in America called health insurance. And it doesn't really work for those of us on our own without costing an arm and a leg. And the whole architecture of getting a home loan, getting a loan, getting healthcare affordably is all driven of you having a job. The whole architecture. This is why I've been somewhat pessimistic around the future of the gig economy, because all the governmental framework is built on you working for somebody. And until we start disassembling that, and I think COVID has been a really good accelerant for that, but I think that is something the organizations should take a look at. And I do think the pandemic has forced organizations to carry less central staff and more contingent staff. Because if I don't know what the future is, I don't want to have to go through layoffs. I don't want to have to, deal with the bad PR and also the severance costs. And so I'm going to keep a small core and a larger accordion core that I can grow and contract based on business changes. And so in California, and you know this, Edwin, Proposition 22, we created a new classification for employees because of health insurance, because the gig companies don't want to pay the full burden. And the lawyers and the government officials are saying, whoa, looks like an employee, smells like an employee, operating with limited oversight. That's an employee you need to pay. And they're like, well, we can't operate then. And the government's like, I don't care. Then I guess you can't operate. They're like, so they spent Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and Instacart spent at least $220 million to pass Proposition 22. And it barely passed. I voted no. It barely passed. And the a district court in California struck it down yesterday. So we're back to kind of square one. They said that proposition is unconstitutional. So anyway, I could go on, but I think the movie industry is a really interesting model to take a look at for some organizations. But I think the fear of losing the good people is going to make people resistant to adopt it.
Interesting. And thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's another dichotomy happening too. I do a lot of work in the oil and gas industry in Texas, and particularly with new first line leaders. And one of their biggest problems is supervising what they call the retired on the job. So the big oil companies have a significant number of employees who've been there 25, 27 years, and they're waiting for that 30-year mark so they can cash out and get all their benefits and everything, leverages. And that's it. So same thing that Steve's talking about here, only on the other foot, is that those who should retire, or those who are not as productive as they could be, are just sitting around waiting for their pensions to kick in and to be vested in their pensions. And that's causing huge productivity issues. And it's also causing a high turnover amongst those younger new managers, supervisors going like, this is too much. This is too hard. You're not paying me enough to try and motivate this person over here who's, in their late 50s. And then it's nice that the company's taking care of them. It's nice the company doesn't drop them off of their payroll but no one really has the answer. As Steve says, there's just so many issues in this between the employers and the employees at all ages right now.
Yeah. And if you take what you just said about, I call it the employee who's playing career defense. I'm playing not to get fired and just
Exactly.
to get to my number, whatever, or that age, whatever that is. Imagine Spain, Italy, France, where it costs you to let someone go than it is to have someone employed for 10 years.
Exactly.
So, and they've built a whole system around tenure matters, not innovation, not creativity. And I'm not blaming because I love the European lifestyle. I would take that lifestyle in a heartbeat, but I would not want to bet on a company that's got people in that lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? So I had an incredible debate with a reporter in Barcelona a few years ago on this. She's like, why would you? I said, because there's someone in China who's going to work 24 hours a day. And if you're only going to let people work 8 hours a day, you think that's okay. All right. It's going to have a nice lifestyle, but some country is going to build a model that's going to compete with that. And so I don't know the right answer here, but I really feel I was working with a big telephone company a few years ago in Spain, kind of like the AT&T of Spain. And I said, what's your biggest problem? We have people, and it was particularly painful for them because their product is on the front line of technology, cell phones and mobile devices. And they have all these engineers working this cool stuff, but they want to move. And all these people who've been there 30, 40, 50 years, not interested. And they won't quit. They won't leave. And they're just waiting for their number. And so they're stuck. And they can't negotiate with the government to change the legislature because the government's going to lose their votes if they start rocking the boat there. And so they're a bit of a catch-22, and I feel for them.
Yeah. And also part of this is, very few people are taking a holistic viewpoint at the employment situation. You go back to Proposition 22 in California. It wasn't just the Uber drivers and the Lyft drivers and whatever. I got impacted, quite frankly. I was a contractor to a training company that bought by one of the big, bought by Korn Ferry, and based in Los Angeles. And I was based in Southern California, and they dropped me because they didn't want to keep me on as a contract employer because it was just too difficult as part of this Proposition 22. So it's impacted some, professional white collar folks as well as, anyone who's doing freelance consulting, freelance accounting, freelance training, anything like that also got impacted by Proposition 22.
Yeah, I got a really interesting story across my desk the other day. Friend's brother just received an offer from a company in Australia, Canva. And Canva's on a rocket ship right now, worth billions, and I think they're in the middle of a public offering in the short term. The offer was 2 envelopes. Do you want to be an employee or do you want to be a contractor? And this is for a U.S. employee, delivered by a Australian company, but they're U.S. subsidiary. And I'm like, what? I'm and all of a sudden it just made sense to me. Of course that's happening, but it was really interesting. You have a choice. And so what my friend's brother did is they thought about it and they said, if I am an employee, I have to sign anything I think of or anytime I'm using your equipment, it's your property. Or I could do my job. I could do other jobs. I don't have to sign that stuff. And yes, the benefits are less, but the cash is more and the stock's a little bit less, but I can make a lot more doing my own stuff while I'm doing this. And I think I've got the time to do it. And I thought, whoa. And so I started asking my recruiter friends in executive search, are you seeing this? I said, no, we're not seeing much of that, but they weren't surprised either. Like, this is kind of an evolution it's a creative approach, right? Like, so what Canva's telling us is, we know that being an employee may not be attractive. So let's give people the options because we want them to create value for us. And if they have other stuff, we're okay with that. And that's in a more enlightened approach than, don't even have lunch with someone at that company. You mentioned Intel. When I used to work at AMD, and Intel was our big company. I still sort of shiver when I see Intel. Like, they're the enemy. And it was great to work for a company where you knew who the enemy was. And good luck if you're trying. We couldn't beat Intel, and they're a very talented organization. But that whole universe is super, super challenging relative to, technology advanced super fast, but our creativity relative to creating new employment arrangements isn't as advancing as fast as the technology. So, and what's happening right now, and literally as we're recording this, all these industries in hospitality, fast food, restaurants, hotels, they're on their heels because they've had a captive labor pool for decades. And now people are like, nah, I'm not sure I want to go do that. I was in Hawaii 2 months ago, and every restaurant we went to was a goat rodeo. It was like way out, like long lines, slow service. And so I asked everyone, like, what's going, like, are you new here? They're like, yeah, the whole staff's new. What do you mean? Well, yeah, all the other staff that was here, they didn't want to come back. And all our consumers are also ordering home delivery. So the kitchen's got double the capacity. They're all new, and we haven't figured it out. And I was like, whoa. And Hawaii, they went in lockdown, like literal lockdown. Do not leave your house unless you're going to the doctor for a period of time. So it reshaped people's thinking even before, and a lot of this was happening before the pandemic, but it's really reshaped it. And so now companies that have never had to fight for talent, and being in the technology world, we've had to fight for talent hard the last 30 years. I mean, software engineers are like endangered species. So you got to get creative. And now we're seeing, I was in Vegas a few weeks ago, $5,000 signing bonus to work here. Or on the radio the other day, $15,000 signing bonus to be a truck driver. I'm like, what? And that's not, I don't think that's a good strategy. It's a failed strategy, these signing bonuses, but it's showing the desperation that some of these firms are feeling. And I have friends whose flights have been canceled because they don't have enough baggage clerks or maintenance staff, just on and on and on. My mom's retirement home, they had to close a restaurant because they can't find people to work the restaurant in her retirement home. And I mean, the cynics will be, oh yeah, stimulus money, unemployment checks, people just live. No, I don't think that's what's going on here. Yeah. I think it's a big shift of how people think. And we've only just started this. I think it's going to next summer. I'm projecting right now. I have a TikTok channel, and I threw it down there, and we got like 1 million views on this one. I said, I am projecting next summer, we're going to have more employment transitions, not just jobs, but career paths and industry switches than at any time in history, because it's sinking in right now. I'm seeing the world differently, and I can see more opportunity and choice of how I can apply my skills. So I think it's exciting on one level, but it's also pretty scary if you're an organization right now. Like, how do you address that your entire workforce, maybe yourself included, is seeing the world really differently right now?
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a timely announcement.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we're researchers, writers, and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what will happen to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
So where are the restaurant workers going? I mean, sure, okay, so they get some unemployment, but that's going to run out in 2-3 months. And then they're going to look for a job.
Well, the other part of this, the reason that question is hard to answer is, and it's a good question because I'm asking that question myself, is do you know when the government reports employment and unemployment, what they're looking at? They're looking at payroll for companies. They're not looking at gig workers.
It's a whole misleading thing.
It's a black hole right now of data reporting. And, you know, they talk to companies like Intuit or like Stripe, who are the accounting backbone for a lot of individual entrepreneurs. They get a sense, but we don't really have a good measure yet of what these people are really doing. Did those people take more control? Are they making videos, training videos and putting it up on Cloudera? Are they making YouTubes and trying to make money? What are they driving Ubers? Who knows where they're going, but we know they're not going there. And in all the states that have stopped the unemployment checks for 3 months, they're not seeing an uptick.
There's
in
no
that talent.
change.
That's
no
right.
Change, no.
And we also don't know. The Postal Service has told us that whole thing about, oh, everyone's leaving California. They're like, no, they're not. They're leaving San Francisco to go to the suburbs of San Francisco because we forward all their mail. You know,
and they don't have to commute, which takes 2 hours each way.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, again, we can, and this isn't part of my book, but it's been fascinating because I finished the book right as COVID was starting, but we could go in a real philosophical direction. I think as Americans, this has been shaking our American dream framework, which is big house, big car, means I need to live probably far away from my office to get a lot of land at lower costs, which means a big commute. And now the pandemic, I've been working from home. I was like, man, I don't miss that commute. And I don't think I need all that stuff that I had before. Like I was just staying at home and I, you know, don't need the gym membership. I don't need the country club, but you know, all these things that we built. And I think we're a society in America that identifies more with ourselves by what we do professionally. And I think that's been exposed for being a little bit hollow and a little bit less meaningful than the time we're spending having dinner as a family more or connecting more. Right. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, the other thing is, again, I don't think anybody has the answer yet, but I heard a quote the other day from a CEO in the Financial District of New York, and it just shocked me. He said, "Don't expect to work in Colorado and get paid New York City wages." And I thought, well, wait a second. If I'm the employee, what's that telling me? My value is based on where I live, not the value I'm contributing to the company. So that again, these are going to be difficult messages and hard to do. And I know Google apparently is doing something of a, well, if you're working at home, we're going to adjust your salaries, such and such.
That's
but
right.
the other thing, but if I was an employee, I'd be saying, well, wait a second. I'm not eating on the Google campus. You're saving money. I don't have an expense account. I'm not whining and dining as much as I was. So you Google are saving money. Why are you cutting my salary? Because I now live in South Tahoe or something like that. So again, this conflict between the mindset of the employer, which are people, and the mindset of the employee, which are also people, is there's a huge conflict there.
Right. And these are things that we've never had to face. I'm so happy I'm not working in a company right now. I have a new entangle list. I could just sit on the sidelines and poke fun at all the challenges. But it is really a whole host of impossible things you have to deal with. So, Stephen, you bring up a great one. And I've been helping companies think this through. We have to rethink our comp strategy. Is there going to be a remote worker salary band now? And some companies are saying, you know what, if you're going from San Francisco to Boise, we based your pay on you having the expense of living here. So we're just going to keep you there and we're going to red circle you. And any increase will probably be a performance bonus, a one-time bonus based on performance and company results and things like that. Or the Google approach, which is we have a spreadsheet, we know. Now, I did a whole podcast with my partner a few weeks ago on this whole Google thing because it just blew up out of nowhere, right? And we're living in the bubble of Silicon Valley, so we do recognize there is life out of Silicon Valley, but this was a hot one. And people were saying exactly what you were, Stephen. It's like, excuse me, we're saving you so much money, you don't have to be paying all those. What they're failing to realize is actually Google does have to pay for those buildings because they signed a long-term lease or whatever. But the other interesting piece of that one is Google's already paying above market. I don't think people are there necessarily I don't think they're going to blink at a 10, 15, 20% quote, salary reduction, because there are other shares were worth a ton of money and other things like that. But it does sort of raise the specter of to the financial services. Jamie Dimon, you heard what he said, everyone back to the office. If you're not in the office, you're not hustling. So get back here. And I'm like thinking at first, I'm like, whoa, you just diminished your addressable labor pool by like 50% by saying that. And probably that's fine. But then I started thinking about it more. I'm like, you know what? They're managing billions of dollars of people's money. Maybe there's a lot on the line that's making him nervous that he's not sure he can create an at-home reality. Maybe he's worried about the security of his data with everyone dialing in from home and all this money. I don't know. I don't know, but it's not as simple as, oh, he's out to lunch. He's lost touch with reality, tone deaf. There's a lot at play here that we're all trying to figure it out right now. And that's why I say, and Stephen, I kind of want to throw this on you and see what advice you're giving when people are saying, Stephen, what do we do? Should we be home, hybrid, back to the office? What? I'm telling people, you got to experiment. I can't tell you what's the right thing. Can you create value in a hybrid kind of, I don't know. You got to find out. But if it's all or nothing without having data, I think that's the wrong approach. And sometimes it's not the decision you make, it's how you make the decision. Are you going to invite input from your employees at all? Or are you just going to say, here's what it is? Because there are consequences, either way. What are you seeing when the companies, are they struggling with this kind of stuff?
They are. And what I've basically been telling them is you can't have a policy any longer. The policy is you have to empower people at certain levels to make that decision.
Oh, I like
and that's
that.
going to be tough. I mean, it's in companies and particularly HR people. So this is our HR policy, right. And and everyone has to follow the same policy. Sure. I mean, listen, I worked at Citibank in Singapore, and we came HR in New York came on the policy. No bonuses for people who weren't assistant vice presidents or above. This is during the financial crisis. So. But in Singapore, as you probably know, people get paid a 13-month bonus. And because that's in their contract, you get a bonus, 1 month bonus, no matter, I don't care if you're the janitor or the vice president of marketing, you get a 13-month bonus. And we had to relabel that. We had to change it. So it was called a 13-month payment or something like that. We couldn't call it a bonus just to stay within the policy of the organization at the time. But that's what I'm telling people now is your policy should be let your line managers make those decisions, understand that, and everyone's going to be different. And even in that, you're going to have to explain to people, I might have 5 people working for me. 2 of them might be single and 3 of them might have kids. Well, the 2 who are single are not going to be necessarily have the treated equally, or it's going to be equity, but not equally. Those who have kids, and if the kids are doing schooling from home, you've got to be more flexible with them. So it can't be the same policy for everybody. That's what I'm teaching them or coaching them on right now.
Yeah, and there is no MBA in remote management. There is no MBA in, I was in Singapore, Stephen, when SARS broke. And
so was I. Okay, I lived there.
Okay. So my son was born during SARS in Nanyang Hospital. But what was interesting from the learning for me that prepared me a little bit for what we're dealing with now, and nothing can prepare you for this, was that when a pandemic breaks out, there's 2 diseases. There's the pandemic, and then there's human panic. And human panic is worse and more challenging to manage than actually a virus, because you don't know how people are going to respond. And I think if there's a silver lining in this, and for COVID-19, and there's a lot of opportunity here, but the silver lining is, I believe it's forced us to do what you said, Stephen, which is we have to know our people more than ever before. It's not about, I know you in the 9-to-5 realm. I got to know, are you worried about your kid's education? Are you worried about mom who's got immunity compromised condition and you're not sure she's safe in her elder care facility because the 3 people just got COVID? Like, you can't deliver if you have a life, threatening or altering situation in your watch, and everyone has something somewhere right now. Plus, I'm zooming into your house and I'm seeing what's on your walls, or I'm seeing dogs making funny noises, or some elder person oh, I didn't know your grandparent or your in-laws are there. Wow. And so we're learning more. And I really hope, I call it sort of the hostile takeover of home by work caused by the pandemic. But it's sort of like we've merged these 2 things now, and let's use that to understand how to build a model of connecting with each other that produces a better outcome. And I don't know if you saw this survey that Gallup did. They found that people are feeling more engaged by their companies when the people are spending less time in their companies. And I found that was super interesting. I wonder if people are transposing I'm engaged, meaning actually I love my more freedom that my company's giving me now, or enabling, I like that lifestyle more than, I'm feeling more comfortable in control of my time, and I don't have to fight for groceries on Sunday. I can go anytime I want now because I'm at home and I can manage my schedule. Yeah. But that was an interesting reveal, right? It's like, and engagement's never been very high in the US. I think the highest Gallup's ever said across the board is like 30%.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing a little bit of a rise, but people are working in the office less. So that's interesting, right?
Let's take a break. If I may jump in and ask you a question or 2 about LinkedIn.
Sure.
Okay. So recently I took a course, is a young gal who's very good, the learning about how to use Zoom, how to be camera ready. And, everything from speaking and background to tone, pacing, whatever.
Are you going to point out all our flaws in our Zoom acumen?
No,
right now?
I'm trying not to look like I look like I'm from space here, So, and I can't see you if I take them off. So I'm adjusting myself here. But what's going on LinkedIn? People back in the office, or this is knowledge work, but still you motivate people by looking at what they're doing, right?
Well, again, I left LinkedIn quite a while ago, and I still have enormous admiration for the culture that I helped lay the foundation for. But what I've been hearing and seeing and reading, just like you, I'm just although I'm an alumni and I get access to different things, they did some things that they'd never done before. They instituted a mandated Friday off. A bunch of Fridays. They instituted a week off here and there. they have installed, I've heard a number of organizations have done this, a filter on your email if you're sending something out on Saturday that says, are you sure this can't wait till Monday? Are you sure you want to hit send right now? And something you said earlier, both of you said earlier, which is, this wellness the awareness of wellness, the concern for burnout has risen almost above diversity and inclusion right now, which was incredibly worthy of attention and had a lot of focus on that. But now the wellness is there for lots of reasons, for lots of good reasons. And that's one of the things that LinkedIn's doing. And I think they've been, LinkedIn, we were never sort of like a market leader in like, we were like, well, what's Salesforce doing? What's Facebook doing? What's Twitter? We're aware of what they were doing before the pandemic. Back when I was there, more from a competitive recruiting standpoint, like we don't want to be way off the mark in terms of our conditions of work, right? Yeah. You kind of want to be in the game, but we couldn't afford to do all the things like, sushi chefs and, free stroller for the Google employees that have kids and stuff like that. But so I'm seeing creativity on that front and more openness. And I know a lot of people, I think even Ryan Roslansky, the CEO, I think he's been in Tahoe most of the pandemic. Now that's a scary place because the air quality in South Lake Tahoe was the worst in the world yesterday. Yeah.
I think creativity is a key word there, Steve. I think everyone needs to be more creative in how they're looking at this. You asked me what I've been doing. I've been teaching the leaders, or not teaching, coaching the leaders that I'm working with. Think of it this way: work is no longer someplace you go; it's what you do. And that's what the employees, we say, well, I go to work. Well, I go to work. I go to work. I went to a physical place. And for a lot of people, that's not going to be true. For some people, it's still going to remain true. Obviously, if you're in manufacturing, you got to go to the plant, whatever sort of thing. But if you just take that concept of what work is, it's what you're doing. It's not where you're going. But I want to, because I know I'm conscious of time here. One of the key questions I really had from you, because I love it. It's something I've been thinking about, as Ed and I've been talking about as I've been working on my next book, is this whole aspect of what does it mean to be a human leader? And I've read the fact that you said something about we need to be more human. And it's almost like, wait a second, why do we have to teach ourselves to be human again? But I think that's what we're learning out of the pandemic. And would you like to elaborate a little bit about that?
Sure. Where I was coming from with this, and it really is one of the big inspirations of the book, is not to be trite or to sound like a repeat of what we know. Of course, we need to be more human. But what I'm trying to do is build a case that I think we all want to hear and need to hear, which is, a counter to the robots and technology and automation and AI fundamentally being the focal point of the future work. Those are tools. And if you want to distinguish yourself as a leader or as a professional, it's going to come down to what we've called soft skills, which I think we should call power skills, because they're harder to teach.
Good idea.
and they're more valuable. But empathy, communication, camaraderie, teamwork, leadership. I want to say communication again. This is my, people. I finally, and I have to say, as a white male, although I was raised in South Africa and I feel I have very good awareness of diversity, and my mom's a feminist, I never felt I had a right to speak about diversity ever. And finally last year, my sister, who's a minister, is like, get out there. They need to hear from people like you about why this is important. I was like, okay, so what's my angle on this whole thing about diversity? And what I said and where I landed, and thankfully, I think it was well received. It was 500 folks in Colombia on a webinar. I said, I think our biggest investment, if we want to tackle things like diversity, is building the capacity to talk about hard stuff. And that's something that technology can't do. And that's something, when I ask people, what kind of leader do you respect? The one that's always like, attaboy, good job, way to go, you're awesome. Or the one that says, hey, Stephen, that was a good presentation. I think there's a few things you might have done better. Would you be interested in like role playing with me? I can make you better next time. But I think, it would miss the mark a little bit. It's the latter. You want people who are able to navigate hard stuff. And in a rush for speed, in our takeout food, quick, go. Oh my gosh, I got to go to the bathroom. That's annoying. In this kind of world that we're living in, we're brushing aside some of these human skills that we have that really can distinguish us and make an impact. And so that's where I'm coming from with this. It's less, and maybe I need to build out more like, well, what does that look like? I'm starting with, why is it important? You want to make yourself career immune from all the technology, be really great. And you guys probably know this from hiring people in your past. I had a really great debate with a leader the other day where they're like, human skills, like, I'm in India. It's all about STEM. That's what we're telling our kids. And I said, well, let me tell you something. I've hired a lot of STEM graduates who are mercenaries. They don't know how to deal with people, and they're worth nothing to me if they can't collaborate and communicate. So you go ahead and get all your STEM stuff. But if that isn't accompanied with someone who can teach and coach and nurture and understand and read between the lines and help answer, help people out of, difficult spots. I've spent most of my career, and I've thought about it after moving out of a daily operator role, I've probably earned my stripes by just helping people reframe something that they are stuck in. They say, this is what it is. Like, are you sure? How do you know that? How about this? How about this? How about that? And just helping people like see when they're stuck. And that's what happens to all of us when we get really emotional. We have a hard time thinking it through. But that's sort of what I'm trying to do is like, this is what we should be telling our kids. This is what we should be doing in school. And it's not the technical, that stuff we can teach,
right.
And so and I think we're overly seduced right now by technology, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of, there's a problem. We got to get a new system. No, maybe people need to collaborate more, right?
Authenticity, right? People need to be real. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As I say, I got good news for you. We interviewed a professor from Notre Dame University last week, Todd Taylor, and he actually is teaching leadership skills at the engineering school at the University of Notre Dame.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's elective, and he says they get oversold every year. And the engineering school, it doesn't matter if you're mechanical engineering or technical engineering or what, all the different departments of engineering. It's one of the courses that they have to take before they graduate. So they're actually learning the same thing you're talking about, empathy and even happiness and the importance of happiness, whether you stay with a company or not. So hopefully it's a trend. Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
Steve Cadigan, I welcome you to come back again, please. Steve, hold up one of your book covers.
I wish I would, but they're all in storage. I've got my stuff shipping from.
Wait a minute, I got one here.
You got one.
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. I got to go into the archives. Wait a minute. Okay, well, this is one of my favorite ones.
You love that book, yeah.
I know. Okay, can you see it? Better decisions, better thinking, better outcomes, and there's a brain. Now, is part of the brain dead?
No, it's on fire. It's what Steve's talking about. It's trying to make snap decisions when you're working 15, 16-hour days. And the other side of the brain is, as I say, when you respond rather than react. So the left side there is the fiery brain that's reacting, and then the right side is when you respond.
Oh, I can't see this too good. Okay, so this is someone you know well, Stephen.
Yes.
Adriana. This is a book that says, when strong women speak, strong women listen. Now, what was your role in this one and the sequel to that?
Well, I was her coach, her writing coach, and then her publishing. I have a little imprint where I help people publish their nonfiction. If it's professional or personal development books, I help them print it and publish it. And so I helped Audrey. She actually published 3 books in that series, what we call the Strong Women Speak series. It's a series of quotes from women around the world, and her goal is to inspire women to help other women.
Okay, now I'm going to show you this is a magazine I published.
Okay,
nice.
This is from 1982.
Oh, wow.
I was publisher of the California Bound Relocation Guides. Actually, the group was called US Bound. We had New York, Florida, Texas, Chicago. But California was my baby. Anyway, that's my daughter and her first husband running through there.
Oh, nice.
But feature stories about where to live in Southern California, and it was a recruitment tool because there was nothing else like it around. Mm-hmm. And we had all kinds of advertising and stuff. So the point of the matter is that when the internet came along, I was printing. This is print, all right? And we were using the Apple desktop, the Mac, and one of the first, and we got covered in their magazine because we were the first magazine publisher to do it all. This is back in 81 or 82. And so we were on the cover of their magazine. And then we got, it's a huge success during that time. But when the internet came along, I wasn't ready for it until my pal finally took me by the brains and said, "Wake up!"
Yeah.
And that was not till 03. So we went through a rough period there. And so the pandemic came along and crashed and burned not only me, but my cash flow from doing 25 years of live training conferences for HR and talent mobility managers and all the services connected. So Paul, my tech partner, Paul, is not with us today. He and I have been doing radio shows now called podcasts for 10 years. And he says, "Well, what do you know about Zoom?" I said, "I don't know." But let's call them teleconferences, and I'll bring my contacts and put them on a TV screen. And I'm comfortable with the TV screen because in earlier days, I used to be a pitch man in Boston. But we started interviewing people. And then years later, seems like years later, along comes Stephen Howard, and we've been doing a deep dive into executive thinking. So thank you, Steve Cadigan. I've reinvented myself in trying to monetize our talk shows. And this afternoon at 3:00 California time, I'm interviewing one of the world's most renowned scientists. She's a doctor at UC in Irvine, doing research on the impact. This is not a pitch, it's just a story about how I'm reinventing what I'm doing because the market doesn't have it. I'm calling it medical TV talk show. And so we're interviewing a series of Parkinson's related, neuro related people. Mark Colo. And so he's on the show too. He's got Parkinson's. So this doctor from UC Irvine is doing huge research, state of the art, about the impact on aging people and the impact of the diseases, COVID and others, on aging people whose systems are not strong enough with immunity. And the impact of the vaccine works on some people, but not on others. But it's a whole reasoning behind why the old people who are not in nursing homes, and I'm one of the old people, who have been getting first in line shots. And we're a big test market for them, as it turns out. And so I got 2 Moderna and no impacts or anything like that. But we're first in line to get that booster coming up in about a month. And so it's really interesting. Anyway, this doctor is going to describe with me what is actually behind the scenes and what's going on. Fascinating. And it's just another indication of, I've reinvented myself to do this kind of thing, but we don't know where the market is. Who's going to care about this topic out there in TV land? Well, we're going to find out. It's part of our network, and our network is advertising supported. So we've got a cushion. Now, I don't know how companies who don't have a cushion are going to survive in their current form with all this people disruption, methodology disruption. Steve Cadigan, would you address that again, please?
Yeah, I think that the way that I would recommend organizations think about the future and being able to attract the best and keep the best people is to care about people, not just when they work for you, but care about them for the entirety of their career. That hire people to make them better for tomorrow, not just when they work for you. And I think that's what I call playing the long game. And it's not something that we're used to. And I think that a more fluid world of your universe of employees and ex-employees and the flow of information and insights and intelligence that could benefit you.
That is a great idea, the bench strength,
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And extend your view of the people that matter to me aren't just my employees. They're my ex-employees. They're my future employees. And we're going to have to look at building what I call the model of the future, which is an ecosystem. I think companies need to have closer relationships with institutions of, educational institutions, and also with alumni, and we sort of have more fluidity. And I think we have to just be more creative. So that's how I would start framing this, that there's, our goal is to create value, and let's be more thoughtful. And as Stephen said, to emphasize creative around arrangements that can deliver that.
Thank you, Steve Cadigan. Stephen?
Perfectly well summarized. Absolutely. And I would only add to that, your contractors are also to treat them like your employees as much as you can. I think that they're, as you said, that Hollywood model, bringing people in and out. So many people think about the contractors as a separate workforce, and it's going to be part of your core workforce going forward.
So, Steve Cadigan, what's your view? This is not rehearsed out there, people, but I'm asking this off the cuff, of the infrastructure spending and the related human infrastructure spending on the impact of helping create transitions in our society.
Can you give me a little more context on the question?
Yeah, I don't know really, but there's all this money coming in to play, and hopefully it'll all be legit when it's parceled out. But there's a way to transition because of a financial cushion. Let's stop doing things the old way. Let's find a new way. Let's experiment, and we're not going to worry about getting paid.
Well, we had, like many things we've encountered for the first time, we had a really interesting experiment. We look at how the United States handled this, where the stimulus funding went and how it was derived. And then you have European nations. So what do European nations by and large do? Gave money to corporations to continue to employ people. What the United States did was give money to unemployment. So people expecting that organization, this is mostly what they did. The U.S. has done other things and help some companies weather this and give business loans, right? These PPP loans, and the distribution of that, whether that was successful or not, we'll find out in the years in front of us. But the U.S. sort of supplied that we're going to create a shock absorber for the people who lost their jobs to a significant extent. That was where most of the money went. Is that the right play? If in taking a look at the European economies and looking at our economies, I don't know the answer to that. But I thought it was curious that they wanted to keep the continuity of employment and all the benefits that go with that. And a lot of the European nations and the United States like, no, we're going to try to help the people because businesses are going to have to let people go because things are tough. And it's just a different point. It was a different perspective, right? That we brought to bear there. But I agree with the premise of what you're saying. I hope that we can be more thoughtful in building better policies. I just think our political system right now is just so broken, and that's another story for another episode. And we're too quick to blame the politicians and not own and act on the change ourselves as citizens. And there's a lot of work that we can do. I'm hopeful, I'm hopeful that we can rebuild better, and organizations can provide more long-term thinking around caring for their people, and not build in, build a business model that it's based on governmental support and governmental help,
So Stephen, is that a new book?
Not for me, no, but I would say that I think what's encouraging, at least when I've read about this infrastructure, whatever it is, the $1.5 trillion or something, is that I think at least people are starting, the politicians and the legislators are starting to think of things like infrastructure is not just roads, which we do need to improve the roads, but it's also the Wi-Fi system. I mean, things like this. If we're going to have more work from home or work from everywhere, we do need better Wi-Fi infrastructure, if nothing else. So I think I'm just pleased to see that at least some thinking of the future of work is going to be different, and therefore the infrastructure needs to be different.
Right. And there's some countries, the Netherlands, I think, is one that I'm aware of, and there's probably others. Their assistance is, if you go and take digital business skills, digital marketing, a lot of what you've gone through this career pivot, Edwin, from magazines to now you're here on the internet doing lots of different things. They're giving people, they'll pay for any of those skills. We'll pay for it. And I don't see the thoughtfulness of upskilling our country as much as covering your grocery bill and your fundamental Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm not smart enough to say what it should be. And I don't have the credibility to do that, but I would like to see more investment in raising the capability of people, not just covering their nut when their chips are down,
On the other hand, Sweden, if we do what Sweden did, I think in the early days of the pandemic said, if you have employees working from home, you're responsible for their safety at home. And so the ergonomics and all that. So, and if we had OSHA going into people's homes, I think that would be taking it a little bit too far from at least in the United States. Sweden get away with it. I don't think the United States could.
Yeah.
So this is not political. This is all business. And thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. Welcome back. Please come.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. This is Ed in San Diego, Steve Cadigan in Silicon Valley, Stephen Howard in Mexico City. Hola. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.